Welcome to Corporate Growth, the podcast for people who are passionate about personal growth and productivity. I'm so excited to have my friend Angel Kilian here with us today. Welcome, Angel.
Hi, Crystal. Thanks for having me. I've been very excited.
Yeah, you're my fellow LinkedIn top voice. I met Angel at my house when we had a gathering for our fellow LinkedIn top voices of that year. And I was so excited to find out that you actually advise people about their careers, because that's something that my audience is always very, very fascinated by.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to have you with us to take us through some tips for our audience, like what can they learn to make better career decisions. So maybe if you could start, Angel, by sharing with us a little overview of your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to try the Chris2 method with this. Actually, a resource that you shared with me a few years ago. So you know how for many of us, we go through life, we fall into our careers, and we get to a point where we feel stuck. We feel like there is something more to do, but we're not sure what to do, and we end up spiraling. So that's where I come in. How I help people is I help them figure out what lights them up, figure out how to rebrand themselves to attract the roles that's going to light them up, and help them land those roles whilst also making sure they're paid fairly.
Right.
So that's exactly what I do.
I love that you said light them up, because that's actually not something that a lot of career coaches talk about. Yeah. And I do think it's so important because we are going to be working for longer than we've ever been working as a generation, right? And it's important that your work is part of your life, and it should make you come alive, ideally, optimally, right? But we're going to get into all that soon.
I think, and that's a great point you brought up, right? Because if you think about even how we're conditioned to think about our careers from a very young age. For many of us, we're taught, you have to go to school, work really hard. And, now you hear about how people already secure their first role before they graduate. It's always about just quickly land a role, make good money, and just continue that way. But we never stop to think about what's going to be our strengths? How do we really excel in this career? How do we build a longer term plan around it? So very excited to talk to you about it today.
Yes, and please tell me a little bit more about how did you become a career coach?
So you know how I just told you what I did, right? And it almost feels like the person that I coach now and I work with a lot, that person used to be me. So I started my career in recruitment, and I was the first person in my family to graduate. So coming out of graduation and into school, it was just, let's quickly take the first role and then we'll figure it out later. And luckily for me, I really enjoyed it when I first started. I got to work with really exciting people. Every day was so different. I made good money, and I got lots of opportunities to see the world. And then I got to a point where I started feeling like, surely there must be more. But, I didn't know what else I could do. And it felt like I should be grateful for what I have. The Angel 10 years ago would have been so proud of the Angel that I currently was also. So I decided I'm not going to shake the boat. I'm not going to rock the boat. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to continue seeing. And maybe things will just come along my way. I spent another 4 years doing that. And it got to a point where I decided for myself, I couldn't go on like that anymore. I felt like all through my career, I was learning different things. I was building on my knowledge. I was meeting a lot of people. There was a sense of excitement, right? And then I got to a point where it feels like I can close my eyes and do everything. And that's not necessarily a bad thing if you think about it.
It's the comfort zone, right?
It's the comfort zone. But then I also felt like there was so much in the world to see and do and learn. But I just didn't know what that looked like for me. So it definitely felt a little bit misaligned. I felt very mad. Mad. I think that word. Mondays felt like a drag. I wasn't excited about it. Let's just put it that way.
I got it. I can totally relate to that feeling of not wanting to go in on a Monday. And in fact, when I was in investment banking, that was kind of how I knew that it was time to leave, because on that Monday morning when I was going to Suntec City, I remember that feeling of imminent dread.
And then it's also that sense of I couldn't really put my finger on what is it. Right? I couldn't put my finger of, is it the money, the people, the role? And when I look at it, it feels like I had a good job, right? I had great people, great team. So many people would want to be in my position. So for a long time, I was really battling all those emotions and feeling of I have it good. Let's not rock the boat.
Yep.
But I felt like there was only so much I could get onto. And after that, I'm like, will I regret not ever trying? Mm-hmm. Will I regret never even betting on myself and putting myself out there and trying and giving it a proper shot at this? And that was a big push for me to go out there and try it for myself. So it was a lot about getting clear about what I wanted, what was important to me, and also what was important to me in this season of life, right? And then looking at, okay, what are the different opportunities? Then the big part was, how do I convince other people that I could leverage all of these transferable skills to add value to them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So that was obviously a successful journey, because today, look at you now.
I know.
Thriving in every way. I want to actually ask you to answer some of our viewers' questions.
I'd love to.
Yeah, well, the first one being quite related to what you just talked about, which is, how do I know when it's time for me to leave my job? What happens if I'm comfortable and my job is well paying, but I have that sense of, is it time for me to leave? How do you make that decision?
Yeah. So I like to think about it as like career curiosity questions.
Oh, I love that.
How do we get more, instead of it being black or white or yes or no, how do we get curious about it? What are my different options? So what I would start, hopefully it doesn't go.
Okay.
So what I would start with doing is really understanding what are some things that I'm really passionate about? What do I value? What are my strengths, right? What are things that excite me? And then I'll start getting curious and to see what are other people who have my similar strengths doing in their careers. How do they make an impact? What does success in their work look like? And I kind of like pick up clues of like, okay, these are things that could be possibilities. These are things that could be not possibilities. These are things I like. These are things I don't like. Almost like playing a CSI game side of things.
Yes.
And then I'll start also checking in with myself, right? When I'm doing different tasks, how do I feel? Is my energy super low? Do I drag myself doing certain things? Or when I'm doing certain tasks, am I really excited? I don't even realize the time passing by.
Yes.
And those are clues on you detecting, in your current role, do you have more activities that are more, I kind of call it also meh zones, or more activities that are, okay, I'm really excited.
Yes.
These are things, I feel myself growing. But also, I think the reality is there is never going to be a role that 100% is going to keep us excited.
Yeah, there's always going to be like the meh. There's always going to be like a certain,
Absolutely. But what we want to do is we want to like play it up, right? So we want to play up the more excitement bits and play down the mere part of things. And I think a great sign could be if you're starting to feel that actually maybe like 80% or more of the things that I'm doing are drowning my energy, are bringing my energy down. That is a big sign of it.
Yep.
Even sometimes feeling very misaligned in values, that I think can be a very big sign that, okay, perhaps I need to start being more curious about what else is out there.
Yep.
And sometimes I find even asking people around us, because sometimes it's hard to see the label of the bottle from inside the bottle.
I love that.
So when we ask our friends, hey, what do you think of what I've been doing in my career? When have you seen me at my best? Those are great signs to like collate together before you make a decision for yourself, I would say. You need to know what you need for yourself before you can convince others also.
Yes. And can I come back to the values piece? You talked about like knowing your values.
Yeah.
You know what, Angel? A lot of my coachees, the people who I coach, or my club members, they will say to me that like they actually never understood how to derive their values, and it's quite a deep, or sometimes they will say chim, chim is like very profound sort of thing. So if you have a client who's really struggling to uncover what their values are, how do you help them?
Yeah, I like to think of it as, what is your dream day? Right? If you were in the dream role, dream opportunity, and you're super, super happy, or maybe another example I can give you is, say in 1 year's time, you're writing yourself a letter, right? And you're writing yourself a letter thinking about how this huge journey that you've been on for the last 1 year, and you're so proud of how far you've come. You're in the right role for you. You're super excited. You're happy. What elements of the role make you really happy? Why is it in line with who you want it to be.
Give me an example.
Yeah. So say, for example, right, a big value of mine could be I have to believe in the product I'm working for.
Okay.
Right? So say, for example, in a year's time, I want to be writing down how I'm so passionate about the work that I'm doing. I see for myself how the service I'm working on, the product I'm working on is changing lives in Kenya. So you know that it's one of the key priorities for you is being able to work on a product that is in line with your values that you're passionate about. Say, let's bring it a bit closer to home, right? In my example, when I first started doing my values assessment and values test, flexibility was not a priority for me, right? At that time, I was single. I didn't have a family. I could travel all around the world, and I was happy with that. That's what I wanted. So when I think about what was in line with my role, something that offered me a lot more travel, something that where I was working with great people, flexibility was nowhere close in that list.
Right.
And then a year ago, when I did my values assessment and what I needed in my next role, flexibility was number one because for me, it was a choice I was making that I wanted to be around my child a bit more.
So you're saying that values can change?
100%.
Yeah.
Think about it this way, right? As people, we change.
Yes.
Every couple of years, our lives change so much. So for our values not to change, that's almost impossible.
I love that aspect because some people say that your values are like your North Star and they don't really change throughout your career if you look backwards. But I'm kind of more like you. I think that, yes, we have certain core values that don't change, but we have other values that kind of change varying on the season that you're in.
Yeah, absolutely. And even in our career, right?
Yeah.
What we want in our career could change so much.
For
when
sure.
I first started out, that hustle, the bustle, the sales element were things that I really enjoyed. And as I grew in my career, I realized having a more of an entrepreneurial experience was something that I really craved in my roles. But the Angel 10 years ago, that would not even have been something that I would have thought about in my career.
I love that you're forever kind of like checking in with yourself. Just and that term that you use, career curiosity, I love that. I think that curiosity is one of the most underrated skills or like mindsets even that we can have, because if you're curious about the world outside and the world inside, like it actually solves a lot of challenges.
Yeah. And also, the curiosity opens up so many different pathways.
Yes.
I mean, look at us now, right?
Yep.
Us having this conversation, there are people of all ages on YouTube making a living.
Yeah.
And if we were never curious, we would miss out all those potential pathways also.
For sure. I think about luck as well. I just gave a speech about this, like, you know, the theory of happenstance in careers, right? There's this theory by Professor John Crumbolts that is like, you can't really plan everything to a T, but what successful people have in common is that so much of their careers depend on happenstance, which is luck. But, you know, how can you increase the surface area of your luck? You can actually have curiosity and get really curious about different events, different people. Even when you are at the bus stop, you're looking around and, you know, instead of just on your mobile phone, are you actually looking up and around and spotting what's going on around you? Because those curious people are kind of also lucky people. They are like, luck is like a bus. There's always another one coming, you know, but if you're not looking up and then you don't even know the bus is coming, you can't get on the bus.
Yeah. You can have the best opportunities in front of you, but if you don't realize it, it's still not going to capitalize.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. I want to like move to our next question, which is, what happens if I am fearful of moving careers, moving to a new role, because I feel like, you know, I have to start from scratch again?
Yeah. I like to think of it in two buckets, right? Remember how earlier we spoke about from a very young age, we're very conditioned to how we think about our careers.
Yes.
So the first part we want to think about is this a fact or a fear, right? If I bring that thinking to a court of law, is the court going to rule in my favor and say, Angel, you're 100% right. If you change careers, you're 100% going to start from scratch, right? And similar to that, maybe we've heard from people around us that if we change careers, we'll have to take a pay cut. We're going to go 10 years backwards. Or that, you know, we're going to be behind all of our peers. And sometimes that's not true.
It's just a belief.
Yeah, it's just a belief. And equally, we can find evidence from our career curiosity piece that gives us evidence that we can do really well in our careers, that we can find different ways to showcase our value and such. So being aware of those fears and finding ways to reframe it is very important. So when I was doing my own career transition, I will be very honest, that was something that was such big in my mind, right? Because I was great at what I did. And I was very afraid that what if I moved into another career and I'm no longer good at what I did. I didn't want to, I took a lot of pride in my work, right? So I wanted to move forward that way. So I would write out like post-it notes. I would change the wallpaper of my phone. I would literally stand in front of the mirror per day and like, I have great value to give. I can do great work and I can equally show my transferable skills. Like I would boost myself up before all the little fears took over.
That like way, affirmations on the mirror?
I'm a big affirmation person. Like it's everywhere, like all over my house.
Yeah, a few of my friends do that.
Yeah, and it works really, really well for me. And then the other part is so when I started in that new role, it did feel like everything was new. It felt like I was in my first job all over again.
Yes.
But I could, decide that this is just how it's going to be. I'm just going to let it be that way. Or I look at, okay, if I'm feeling that way, what's going to help me feel better? Right? So when I first started, I look at a 6-month plan and I identify what are the knowledge gaps and what are the skill gaps that's going to help me feel like I'm taking steps forward in this new career.
Right.
So I would do check-ins with my manager. I would have very smart goals. I would know how to measure these goals. And I would be able to tick them off. So with me, mentally, I would feel like, okay, I'm progressing, I'm moving forward, I'm closing goals. I would make sure that I'm networking in the new area. I would also then make my own curriculum, make my own MBA program. If these are the goals, how can I close those skill gaps and knowledge gaps? So because I had a plan, even when I was feeling fearful, I was reframing the beliefs, but I had a plan on how I was closing it to move forward.
Yes.
And I think it's very testament because even when I moved into my new career, 18 months later, I moved into my director role. So it gives us the evidence, right? We can move careers, we can transition careers. But a Deloitte study even proves this. 85% of the time, we're still tapping on our transferable skills.
Yes.
Only 15% of the new skills is new, and then 85% is actually transferable skills.
So that brings us to the next question really nicely. A lot of times I get questions about transferable skills, like you mentioned. I have been actually recommending that people go to ChatGPT because I just did this. The other day I had a teacher who wanted to apply for a job with, F&B in hospitality. Okay. And I said, go to ChatGPT and type in like, what transferable skills does a teacher have? And how does a teacher pitch for this hospitality job? And the ChatGPT gave me 10 transferable skills, like, difficult conversation skills and, social emotional intelligence, empathic communication. I was amazed. Yeah, but what would you recommend?
So I'm a little bit more old school because I feel like when I put pen to paper, it helps me think better also. And I think there's a lot of science behind that on how we reflect and look at our goals. So I would literally pull out every single role that I've done. So if it's possible, I would look at if I can get access to my old job descriptions, right? The old roles that I used to do. And I would literally highlight all the skills that I know in different roles I could use, or highlight all the soft skills, communication, your listening, stakeholder management, project management, highlight all of that. But then what I would also urge you to do is also go and look at your life experiences, because our career is just one part, right, where we have skills. But we've had to grow up in difficult situations. We've had to raise 2 kids on a farm on the other side of the world. Those give us so many different skills. So I will almost do an audit of all the previous roles that you did, life experiences, and even in school growing up or volunteer experiences, what are all the different skills that you've had to use? And literally collate a list of everything that I have. And then when you take this into your career curiosity conversations, look at what are the same skills that people use. Or like you said, right, because now I've done a full audit on all the different skills that I have, I can even put it into ChatGPT and like say, these are my top 10 skills that I want to leverage. What are career paths that I should potentially explore?
No, I love that. I definitely don't think that, it's just about ChatGPT. There's also an element of yourself best.
Yeah.
And like you can glean, from these experiences, like what the common thread is that connects all of them. At the same time, I do find the using AI or some kind of research helps because for people who are very sophisticated, they can do this.
Yeah.
But a lot of times people come to me and they say, well, I actually don't know. Like looking back on all my experiences, I don't know. Just help me. And
like where to start also.
I don't even have the language for understanding like what did I learn. And sometimes I get a little bit like, this is where my tough love side of me comes in. I'm like, no one can do it but you.
Yeah.
You have to do it for yourself. You cannot just ask anybody to be like, tell me what I'm good at. Because if you don't know like what your value is, how can you advocate for yourself?
And that's the thing, right? You can get ChatGPT to come up with all the skills, but only you know which ones you want to play up more of and which elements you want to play less of.
Yes.
Right? And I'm sure ChatGPT can help you with the uplift and stuff, but when you start thinking about it, that helps you start reflecting about it.
Yes.
And you want to pick your top 10 because there's going to be so many different elements that's going to come out, and it can be quite overwhelming and daunting, and it feels like, well, then now I can do every single role, right? I can do possibly anything.
Yes.
But that's why it's so important to think about when each skill that you're doing, how did that make you feel?
Yes.
What came up for you? Is that something you want to keep? Or is that something you want to put in a second tier, third tier bucket side of things, and then focusing on what kind of roles the first year would open up?
Yeah. That's spot on. I mean, like, I also believe there's an element of strategic matching.
Yeah.
So, for example, if I'm going to apply for a job in a hedge fund and I know the culture is a certain kind of culture, I'm probably not going to amp up on the skills that ChatGPT gave me that don't really resonate with that culture. So, like, if it's saying that, I learned, like, I don't know, how to be, like, really, I don't know, empathic and like warm or something, where the culture like emphasizes more like a task focus rather than a relationship focus. I might have to like, say, okay, that's a secondary thing, but I might need to play up more on my ability to deliver under tight deadlines, for example.
Yeah, and it also segues very well into how you're talking about values, right? So when we look at our transferable skills, also think about it in two buckets.
Yes.
One side of the sheet, we have, these are the skills, my top 10 skills that I want to leverage in the next role. And then on the other part is thinking about what do you need in this stage of life, in this season of life, in that new role. Is it X amount of salary? Is it being able to work in a certain, in a remote role or a certain part of the world? Is it looking at, I don't know, what else could we look at? Using certain strengths of yours. So think about it like inward and outward. Inwards, these are my skills and everything that I have. And outwards, this is what I need in that next role at this season of life.
Love that.
Yeah.
I also want to ask you about personal branding because that's something that I really think that you do very well.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's talk personal branding.
Okay.
Why is it important in your career, and like, what are some tips for our viewers?
Yeah. So this personal branding, especially when you're making a transition, can be very different, right? So say, let's use my example. I was a recruiter. I was a recruitment leader for the first 10 years of my career. When I wanted to make a transition, I didn't want to be known as a great super recruiter anymore, right? But the whole world sees like Angel. Angel's your person to get any hire that you want. She's going to be a super recruiter. She knows everyone. But I wanted to be seen as someone who can bring together organizations, help organizations build together inclusive leadership, or even on the business front, help people figure out what they're really good at. And that took a different type of intentionality. So I had to talk about things based on what my target audience needed to hear. So I had to stop talking about recruitment and I had to start talking about how the challenges people face in their career, the challenges organizations face in the workplace.
Yeah.
So that is one bit of things. And you really need to show up on places where people can see you, right?
Yeah.
You can have the best skills, but if nobody sees you, there's no point as well. So LinkedIn is a great tool for that.
Yes.
And I think more than anything, your network is such a big tool for that. So if you're making a new transition, who are some people that you should be connected to with in the new network, right? who are some people that you can go out and support and be seen at their events, so you can learn from them, but also you can add value to them.
Right.
And
so
I think,
can you give me an example?
Okay, let me give you an example. So when I used LinkedIn as a big tool for my own career transition.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I adopted the show me, don't tell me method.
Yes.
Everybody can say, I want to make a transition into consulting. I want to be the next big coach. I want to help people do this. But show me exactly how you're going to do that, right?
Okay.
Everybody says, but show me how. So I would write content pieces on LinkedIn. Sometimes I would write stories about my past, about how I've helped people navigate through. Sometimes I would put up testimonials of how I've done that. Or I would put up thought leadership pieces of how we can think about our career differently. So say, for example, if you are someone who is in sales and you want to move into marketing, right? Talk about what are some of the top 10 marketing ideas that you can leverage AI with to make a difference, to stand out, to create 100 leads. If you are if say you are a marketing consultant wanting to go into the lead generation world, something you could do is, as you've built new skills to bring in leads, work with property agents to set up a landing page for them and optimize their ads so that they can generate leads. And then talk about your results. So you're not just telling people, I can do this. Let me show you how I've done this.
I love that. I say that show, don't tell is like one of my principal sort of like mantras. I keep on telling people, don't tell them I'm the best real estate agent, I'm the best whatever, just show them. Like, how do you show them, and like what is the evidence? So like it's kind of like what Gary Vaynerchuk says. It's not about like creating content, it's about documenting. And I think when you actually take that documentation approach, like, if I'm just kind of showing you, like, this is what I did this week. Today, I just gave this advice to this coaching client, and the subtext is that, see, I have a lot of clients and they come to me for help, so you can come to me for help too, sort of thing.
And I think something that I realized as well, right? People want to root for you. People want you to do well. So when you can show them the journey, they're more excited for you. And they'll be like, I know of this person who's been making a career transition. They're so proactive in their career. They've been trying new things. Who can I refer you to? Who can I connect you with? And that's something that I've, like, instead of just thinking of, I have to be all perfect, I cannot show people the journey. I found actually a lot of value in showcasing the journey to people.
For sure. I totally agree. And there's this kind of unhelpful startup phrase, which is like move in silence. Have you heard of that? There's a lot of people who say, move in silence, as in don't let anybody know that you're working on this side hustle or you're trying to do this. And then and then when it's done already, then you present it. Because a lot of people have this idea that, there are people who wish you bad luck or negativity, and like if you share your plans, then maybe other people can scupper them. I totally don't believe that. Like I've always been like, I'm building something, I want to hear everyone's feedback on it, I want to hear everyone's thoughts, and we can co-create this thing together. So I don't know, maybe it's just like there's merit in each approach, but for me, I'm definitely be vulnerable, be authentic, share with people what you're dealing with. And like a lot of times the support that I have and had comes from people because I'm sharing what I'm struggling with.
Actually, on that, I've got this story. So when I started in my new role, it can be quite scary and daunting, and I had that mentality of, I have to show that they've taken a big investment on me and it's going to pay out, so everything I produce have to be perfect, right? And I would go to my boss and get feedback only at the end of everything, when I've made the slides really polished, it looks really nice, and I'll be like, what do you think? And often she would give me feedback, and that brought me back to the drawing board, and I wasted so much time that way. And one of the feedback that I got was, your peer, he actually comes to me with 50% of things done, or sometimes 30% of the things done. And it's not perfect, the slides are all over, but I give him feedback in the moment and he goes back and he adjusts. The result of that is he progresses much faster and he gets feedback a lot more times, that he gets to sharpen his work better and better each time. So that piece of, waiting for it to be all perfect and then going forward, it almost applies to every bit of my life. That's one of my biggest lessons I think learned last year.
I love that. Yeah. So we have a couple more questions, one of which is about biggest mistakes that you've seen people do when they are trying to navigate a career change or transition?
Yeah. I don't know whether I should say this. I'm going to say this anyway.
Please do. I love it.
But I think sometimes especially growing up in Asia, we often think that the way for us to land a role or to move careers is going back to school. So when I speak to people who want to make a career change and they're not 100% sure what they need, the first choice that they always look at is, let me go and sign up for an MBA program.
Yeah.
And sometimes you do need the MBA, right? Or education. Like say if I'm going to want to be a lawyer or a doctor today, I probably do have to go back to school and adopt some specialist skills. But oftentimes that is not where you want to start.
Yes,
right?
I totally agree. I'm not really an MBA person. Like I've never ever seen any employer who would rather take an MBA over somebody who actually has the right attitude and fit and competencies and energy.
And what I find is, and let's be honest, the MBAs are expensive, huh?
Yes.
They invest a lot of time, they invest a lot of energy, a lot of resources. And what happens is I find a lot of them, after graduating, they're then competing with people who have gone out and done these experiments and built up expertise, and unconsciously they find themselves almost one step backwards in landing that role.
Yeah.
But they've already invested so much into it. So that is definitely one thing that I would say. Have a think and try your career curiosity exercises, your experiments before actually looking at, do I really need an MBA to make that pivot?
I could not agree more. And oftentimes, like coming from the university background prior to, starting my own company, I was often candidly I'm not talking just about one specific university, but I've taught at many, many different universities and given speeches everywhere. And I'm always kind of shocked at why are we paying so much money to be learning from professors who actually, many of them are so out of touch with the real world. So many of them, even the business school ones, so many of them are kind of in their ivory towers. Probably the business school ones are the best out of the lot, but so many of them just aren't really savvy about what is actually going on the ground. Yeah, so I really think that the lived experience of doing something, getting your hands dirty, rolling up your sleeves, going out and volunteering at events, speaking to people who are doing something I've never been, maybe I want to be a career coach or a career consultant. I don't know what that's like. Oh, but I know Angel is doing fabulously. Maybe at Angel's next workshop, I'll volunteer and ask whether I can hand out name tags or whatever and just kind of stalk her and see.
You know how you were talking about, let's increase the surface area of luck for ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And maybe I think first we have to get out of the mindset the only way for me to get experience is in a job.
Yeah.
I can volunteer.
Yes.
I can do free sessions.
Yes.
I can, reach out to different communities, be it in I know of people who volunteer in churches, who volunteer in not-for-profit organizations.
Or even talking to school kids,
or even set up a gig on Fiverr. And I'm going to offer this service.
Love
and
it.
In return for a testimonial or in return for feedback, I would do this for you. But all of those are practical skills that you can put on your resume.
For sure. I couldn't agree more. Even for me, when I was trying to get into public speaking, I was just giving free speeches, and there's always people who want free content. If you are trying to make a role, you can teach something, think about what can you teach, and chances are there will be somebody that's looking for programming, whether it's a members club or chamber of commerce or some kind of international association or whatever it is. There's always people.
Yeah, there's always people. We have to think creatively about it, and I think that's the big part, right? In the old way of doing things, when we think of career transition, is I look on LinkedIn, I scroll, I apply, and that's it. But there is a more proactive way of looking at it. But also because we want to be high achievers, we're talking about growth and development, right? And that always is not going to position us as high value candidates.
Yeah.
It's also thinking about how can I proactively be in the driver's seat of my career to be seen as a high value candidate, even if I'm making a transition.
Yeah. Angel, I just want to throw something that I haven't prepared you for. I'm interested in you as a person as well. I want to know the person, behind all this brilliant advice. Can you take us through your say, morning routine? Like, how do you get yourself like set up for a successful day?
So I will be completely honest, it's a work in progress.
Yes.
Because every day looks so different. The day that I would love to have for myself is I wake up, I don't look at my phone.
Yeah.
And I spend the first 5 minutes, you know how I told you I have all these post-its around my house?
Yes.
I literally, as I walk to my bathroom, I see so many of these post-its and I'm literally saying it out loud.
Yes.
And as I brush my teeth, I do my power pose. So as you can see, there's a theme here, right? I'm very big on mindset and being proactive that way. I do my power poses, I get into my frame.
Yes. Sorry, what time do you wake up? I'm always very interested.
I'm not an early bird, you know, so I probably wake up like, if my first call is at 9 o'clock, I probably wake up at 8 o'clock, 8:15.
Yay, you're
I'm
my
not like,
soul sister.
And if my husband is in town and he's doing the morning routine, I get to, and if my calls are later, I would wake up later.
Yes, I'm like you.
But I'm definitely more of a night owl. I can work until 1, 2 a.m. and that's when I do my best work.
Me too. Yeah, when the house is quiet.
You're probably the only person. Yes, when the house is quiet.
House is quiet, then I'm suddenly damn creative, you know. Then all the juices are flowing.
And then after that I feel really bad. It's like, oh, but I'm taking away couple time.
I know.
I need to go and chat.
Yes.
But no, I am 100% the person. I do my best work at night.
Yeah. Okay. So you're walking through to your bathroom. You're seeing the affirmations. You're brushing your teeth, doing the power pose. Then what happens after that?
Then what happens? I almost dive back into my emails.
Okay.
I go straight into my emails and I don't have a solid breakfast. I always have a protein shake, a shake kind of breakfast.
Oh, tell me about your protein shake. What kind of protein?
This is probably the only thing that I've had consistently for the last 6 years, I would say. I'm someone who, I cannot eat the same thing for the rest of my life.
Yes.
I have to eat the same thing. I cannot eat the same thing, for even 2 days in a row.
Yes.
But this protein shake has gone from, previously when I started, there was like, many different things like bananas and apples and proteins and protein powder and chia. Now it's very basic because I work from home a lot and I'm not as super active and I lost 20 kg in the last 12 months.
Wow.
So now it's just protein shake and soy milk or almond milk.
So what do you put in a protein shake?
Nothing. So that's all now. So protein powder.
What kind?
I do a lean, I think it's called like lean in protein or lean protein.
Yes.
And I do like 25 grams of that.
Okay.
And it's just 180 mLs of soy milk.
Okay.
And it's just shake, that's it. But it keeps me full to maybe about like 12, 1.
Okay.
But yeah.
Awesome. Any supplements or anything like that?
I should probably have supplements, but I don't like taking tablets. I really struggled to like take tablets. I feel like it's always going to come back out. So I don't take supplements or anything. So because I have a young one, when he started going to playgroup, everyone in our house got so sick so fast.
Yes.
And that started us like, okay, we need to get on something. So I have like these Vus tablets, that one tablet every day, like orange.
Yes.
I have that, and that really helps us.
Okay, well, now we know your secrets. Thanks so much for joining us today at Confident Growth. I think like my audience is like so going to benefit from all of your practical wisdom. There's been so many brilliant insights here that I think are also very bite-sized and like really relatable for everyone. Where can we find you, Angel?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram, koreanfocus.co.
Okay.
Or you can find me on LinkedIn. My handle is /Angel Kilian.
Yeah, we'll drop all the information in the show notes. And until next time, this has been Confident Growth, the podcast for people who are passionate about personal growth and productivity with the amazing Angel Kilian. Thank you so much, Angel.
Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure.